Good day and welcome to the CQI Training Academy, Making It Work For You webinar. Today's call is being recorded. I would now like to turn the call over to Christy Stankovich of the Capacity Building Centers for States. Please go ahead.
Thank you and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. As the operator mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the collaborative site at the conclusion when ready. This webinar is interactive and we will have polling questions, so we encourage participation. Phone lines at this time are muted, but will be unmuted at the Q&A towards the end of the presentation. If you'd like to ask questions, you can use the questions pane on the GoToWebinar pane to your right-hand side. Again, we'll be unmuting for Q&A at the end. The operator will be assisting with those. At this time, I will turn it over to Kristen Zagar of the Center.
Thank you, Christy. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Kristen Zagar, and I'm the Universal and Constituency Services Manager at the Center for States. Today, our featured presenter is Dawn Schoenhoven-Scott, and also several of my colleagues from the Center States will participate in this presentation, to include Melissa Correa and Charmaine Britton. Next slide, please. And the next one, Christy. The Center for States is excited to offer the CQI Training Academy, but before we begin our presentation, we wanted to provide some background on the Child Welfare Capacity Building Collaborative and the Center for States. In October 2014, ICF was awarded a contract by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Children's Bureau to establish the new Child Welfare Capacity Building Collaborative. On the next slide, you will see that the Center for States, Center for Tribes, and Center for Courts are partners who form the Capacity Building Collaborative that consolidates services that had previously been provided by the National Child Welfare Resource Centers. This consolidation increases coordination, leverages resources, and provides more strategic service provision. Next slide, please. Our goals are to work with partners and jurisdictions, states, territories, tribes, and courts to provide capacity building to lead to improved outcomes for children and families. And on the next slide, you will see that we do this by partnering with states, territories, tribes, and courts to identify, design, and implement innovative solutions that meet the unique needs of each jurisdiction we work with. Next slide, please. The Center for States serves state and territorial public child welfare agencies and Title IV waiver demonstration jurisdictions. ICF International supports the Center for States, where Maggie Bishop is the project director. You might recognize ICF from our work on the Child Welfare Information Gateway, as ICF has a long history of working on technical assistance contracts with the Children's Bureau and other government agencies. The Center for States aims to provide evidence-based capacity building support services that will improve performance and support states and territories in effectively initiating, implementing, and sustaining change and innovation. To achieve this goal, we work with our partners to create and deliver coordinated, inclusive, and well-informed capacity building services. Next slide, please. In the Center for States, we have 3 service areas that offer a range of services. Our universal services promote engagement among a broad nationwide audience of state agency professionals. We do this by developing and providing resources and tools and products. Our constituency services include learning experiences and peer networking opportunities that are aimed at a targeted group of individuals or professional cohorts. And our tailored services provides direct capacity building support to state agencies and territories focusing on capacity building and implementation efforts. And before I turn it over to Melissa, we would like to remind you to visit, next slide please. And before I turn it over to Melissa, we would like to remind you to visit the Center's website regularly for updated information, the addition of new resources, and to find our latest news from the Center.
For more information, visit the Child Welfare Capacity Building Collaborative at https://capacity.childwelfare.gov.
I will now turn it over to Melissa Correa, who will talk about the CQI focus area.
Thanks, Kristen. Hi, everyone. This is Melissa, and I serve as the lead for data-driven practice at the Center for States. As a result of our ongoing needs assessments, the Center for States has a number of focus areas. One of the primary focus areas that cuts across all service and program areas is CQI, or Continuous Quality Improvement. The working definition that we're using for CQI comes from Children's Bureau guidance in this area, specifically the CQI Information Memorandum that came out a couple of years ago, as well as past work of many experts in the field, including the NRC for Organizational Improvement and many others. Our ongoing work in this area is informed by additional partners providing expert consultation and support. CQI is the complete process of identifying, describing, and analyzing strengths and problems, and then testing, implementing, learning from, and revising solutions. It relies on an organizational culture that is proactive and supports continuous learning. CQI is firmly grounded in the overall mission, vision, and values of the agency, and perhaps most importantly, it's dependent upon the active inclusion and participation of staff at all levels of the agency, children, youth, families, and stakeholders throughout the process. On the next slide, we'll talk about the Center's efforts to build capacities for effective CQI. So how does the Center plan to support the development and strengthening of state CQI systems? In order to build CQI capacity, we need to use a CQI process to identify the problem, examine the root cause, and then develop and implement an improvement strategy that is monitored and refined to assess outcomes. So we're using CQI to improve CQI. Challenges in state CQI systems may fall into some of these buckets shown on the slide. Things like, are the functional components in place? Does staff have the knowledge and skills that they need? Do states have the ability to self-assess their CQI capacity? Is the climate and culture supportive of CQI activities? Are partners effectively engaged? And is the CQI process used methodically to solve problems throughout the agency? On the next slide, we'll talk about some of the outcomes we want to achieve through our overarching CQI capacity building efforts. These goals refer to the broad CQI capacity building focus area. The CQI Training Academy that we'll be talking about today is only one component of this larger focus area. You can see the outcomes and goals that we have for CQI listed on the slide.
Those goals and outcomes are: increase awareness of available resources and best practices, increase knowledge and/or skills, improve agencies' capacity to assess their continuous quality improvement (CQI) systems level of functioning, build relationships with peers and support information exchange, increase the application of improved skills in day-to-day practice.
On the next slide, we'll talk about other strategies under development and the target audiences for those strategies. So here's a very high-level view of what we have planned for the CQI focus area. We want your feedback, and we'll be learning as we go and adapting our strategies to meet the needs of the field. Examples for target audiences include CQI staff and leadership, data analysts and data leaders, child welfare leaders from other program areas. Strategies include practical tools and resources, peer networking opportunities, learning experiences, and state-specific tailored services. On the next slide, Charmaine will talk a bit more about what we mean by learning experiences. Charmaine?
Hi, everybody. Learning experiences are developed by constituency services to build the knowledge and skills across the jurisdictions in the country. We do this through a variety of modalities, including e-learning, curriculum, webinars, videos, a variety of ways. Here for CQI, we have developed e-learning and a variety of other things that Don will tell you about in just a minute to help you build those knowledge and skills that Melissa just talked about. The CQI Training Academy was originally developed and piloted by JBS International and funded by the Children's Bureau, and it is now housed on the Center for States along with other things that will assist with the development of knowledge and skills. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dawn Schoenhoven-Scott, and she's going to tell you how you can go about that.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dawn Schoenhoven-Scott, as Charmaine mentioned, and I'm excited to share information and facilitate some discussion about the CQI Training Academy with you all today. Just so you know a little bit about me, I have a background in working in public child welfare as a case-carrying worker and a quality assurance supervisor, as well as a background in workforce development and training. And so I'm excited to share a little bit about the Academy and what it can offer for states and jurisdictions that are implementing CQI. What we'll be doing today is reviewing the objectives and components of the Academy, as well as how to access and navigate it. We'll also be discussing the value of the Academy, how it can benefit your particular jurisdiction, and then most importantly, we'll be considering how it can be integrated into your existing training and workforce development around CQI. So we'll really be thinking about how it can be tailored to meet your needs. What I'd like to do to start is get a little bit of information from you as our participants. Please take a minute to answer the polling question on your screen. So we'll leave that open for just a few more seconds to let us know whether or not you're currently working to implement or enhance continuous quality improvement in your organization. So it looks like the majority of our participants today are already at some phase of implementation, and then we've got a small group of folks who are, it sounds like, just starting out this process. So we'll move into our next polling question. I'm interested to hear with how many folks are at some phase of implementation of CQI. Do you already currently provide training or workforce development related to CQI? Please take a moment and answer yes or no. And we'll just leave that open for a few more seconds. So this is interesting because I think a lot of us are at some phase of implementation, and many of our states and jurisdictions are starting to look at building structures and policies. And it looks like we have a higher percentage of folks who haven't quite come along with the training and workforce development. So we'll move into the last polling question, which is really going to help us get a read on where you're at in that process of implementation. So on a scale from 1 to 5, where 5 is you have sophisticated, well-established CQI systems, processes, and infrastructure in your organization at this time, and where 1 is that you're just beginning to lay a foundation for those things. Where are you at on that scale? So keep in mind that you're seeing the 1 to 5. 5 is you have well-established, sophisticated systems. 1 is you're just starting to implement CQI, and they're not quite well-defined yet. So take a few more seconds and go ahead and scale that. There we go. Okay, so we've got a little bit more of a spread with this last question. It seems like we've got a large range of folks that are sort of the 1 to 3 range, and then a smaller group in 4 to 5. So what's great about this resource of the CQI Training Academy is no matter where you're landing on that 1 to 5 scale, this is a resource that can really help support those who are maybe in the 1 to sort of lower 3 range and just really starting to build a CQI model or processes or infrastructures can really help you lay that foundational knowledge. And for those who are on the higher end of that scale, maybe a little bit farther along in the process with the high 3s, 4s, and 5s, this can be a nice supplement and can be customized and tailored to meet what you're already doing to implement and support workforce development around continuous quality improvement. So this will help us get a read of who's participating, and will also guide us later when we talk more about how to integrate this successfully no matter where you're at on this scale. So we'll go ahead and move forward. For me, I think one of the most exciting elements about continuous quality improvement is the huge opportunity that we have as professionals. As I mentioned when I introduced myself, I worked in direct practice in a public child welfare agency in California for about 7 years. I was
direct practice case carrying line worker for a few years, and then promoted and held a variety of positions as a supervisor, but my last position before I left the agency was as a quality assurance supervisor. And now in my role supporting workforce development and training to several counties in the Southern California area, I'm helping our counties think about implementing CQI. So I've sort of seen a progression in starting with assessing, evaluating my own practice as a line worker, thinking about how do I hone and refine my own skills, and then shifting into a QA supervisor to pay attention to sort of a whole office. How do we work on ongoing improvement of practice from that lens, and now with a larger macro level lens. So for me, it's really important to think about how do we apply CQI both at that individual level for direct workers, and then how do we help support opportunities for us to do that as a full workforce. For me, the biggest opportunity here is that it's not just that we're creating opportunities for this type of improvement in practice, but that it's really becoming sort of a baseline expectation for us in our profession, that we are focusing on, with individual professionals, organizationally, and even within all levels of our workforce at the top, from leaders down to workers, how are we expecting coordinated efforts that are integrated in our infrastructure to support this kind of continuous improvement in the quality of our services and support we offer. So for me, this is a great opportunity in our field to advance our work and really ultimately to get to better practice and better outcomes for kids and families. So we'll sort of consider that as our backdrop for today. I want to move into looking at the overview of the Academy. So our goals and outcomes for today are really, or the goals and outcomes for the Academy are to get at increasing foundational knowledge of CQI, and the hope for outcome is that staff will have that foundational knowledge and then be able to apply it in supporting CQI processes in their organizations. The Academy relies on a cycle of learning framework that we're going to show you in just one second. And this framework is, it's really laying out the CQI cycle of learning, which includes identifying and understanding a problem, researching possible solutions that might meet the needs of that problem, developing a theory of change to help support addressing the problem, adapting and developing a specific solution, so really tailoring it to what the need is, implementing that solution so you can test it out, try it on, and then most importantly, monitoring and assessing that solution to see, is it really addressing the identified need or the problem in the way that we had hoped? And then you can tell the cycle doesn't end there. It's meant to be ongoing so that we're continuing to refine that solution and really address the problem identified, and then even moving forward and looking at other problems and starting the process again. This cycle is rooted in data collection, quality data collection, and then, of course, the analysis and interpretation of that data, communicating with others both internally and externally, and then collaborating about the information we gathered from that data, and then again supporting the sustainable efforts around CQI. That's how we get to the C in CQI, the continuous piece. How are we going to do this in an ongoing fashion? So this is the cycle that is relied upon in the overall Academy. We want to spend also a few minutes talking about the history of the Academy. We're really building now on the knowledge gained and experiences of the previous cohorts. So from January through September of 2014, JBS Inc. and its partner, the Center for the Support of Families, in collaboration with the Children's Bureau, delivered the CQI Training Academy as a 7-unit training program, and it was really meant to be sort of a distance learning opportunity to assist with improving CQI activities and processes. So we had 2 cohorts completed previously. One cohort participated in self-directed learning modules, reading assignments, and supplemental materials that are all available online. And that's sort of the base model of the CQI Academy. There was a second cohort that participated in all of those online supports, as well as participating in some additional supplemental learning experiences such as application activities, individual coaching, and group learning opportunities. So what we've learned from this history is that we had quite a bit of success in those early cohorts, and we're going to be building on that, building on the feedback that was gained through that evaluation. So I'm going to spend just a minute on the next few slides reviewing the successes and the learning that we gathered in the feedback from those early cohorts. We had participants from every region and every state represented in the CQI Academy in those first cohorts. Participants overall were satisfied with self-directed learning, with the faculty that helped support the process, as well as with the group-based learning that was provided. And in general, folks felt like it was very engaging. Participants felt that they were really drawn into the process. which is always something we're hoping for in training and workforce development. What we also saw was that the knowledge that was gained wasn't just something that was retained at the end of a learning module, but what we saw through the feedback and the post-test was that the knowledge gained really helped folks develop the competencies needed, but also to demonstrate that they could transfer the learning into real-world scenarios. And that's where we're really getting high-yield return on investment in resources such as training and workforce development. We never want to only depict that a trainee or a participant can sit through a training and spit back out the information they got that day. What's most valuable is to ensure that when somebody goes through a training, they can come back to their workplace in their daily practice, and that training actually shows up there and impacts the way they practice. And that's some of what we saw in the feedback from the original deliveries. Some additional successes we saw on the next slide that we got within the feedback were around messaging and communication. So some of the feedback we got was that participants found the amount of material as well as the pre- and post-test to be a little bit more extensive than they were expecting, and this presented a challenge. We know that workers in this field are busy, leaders in this field are busy, so the feedback was that to clearly message the expectations and what's laid out in this resource will be really, really valuable. To address some of that, we also had some modifications that were completed. Some of the pre- and post-tests were streamlined, and there were some changes to the types of ways that folks can access or use this academy. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in a bit. We also got feedback that the materials are very customizable, using real-world examples enhanced the learning experience, and that selecting staff based on their functions was really effective. So an example of that is that a staff who has a specific function who took an online learning module related to that function, that was where they really felt like it landed with them and was very effective. The other biggest learning that we had was in general about the fact that folks really felt that they could go back to their offices and workplace and impact the CQI culture there. And what we've learned about continuous quality improvement is that it's not just a few minor changes in how we're doing data collection or compliance monitoring, but it's really an overall shift in how we view culture of ongoing changes and improvement to practice. So the capacity of workers, staff, and leadership who are implementing CQI, the importance of them being able to shift CQI culture in their office is really, really valuable. And the feedback we got was that folks felt like they had that as a result of going through the academy. So that is some of the success that we experienced in the early cohorts. We're going to be transitioning from talking about the previous deliveries into the academy as it stands now, and we'll be moving forward to talk about what training modalities are included there. So on the next slide, you'll see that the modalities used are some self-directed e-learning modules, as well as a resource library that contains some supplemental readings. There's also some discussion guides that can be used, questions that are available to help think through the learning and process the learning in groups if needed. There are supplemental supports that can include webinar coaching, facilitated group learning, and application activities so folks can practice the skills that they're learning. We'll talk more about those supplemental supports and how the center can provide those when we're discussing how to integrate this in your own training programs. So to talk a little bit about the target audience, what we're really hoping for is mid-level managers who have responsibility related to CQI. So anyone who's helped executing policies and plans related to CQI, monitoring performance of CQI staff, anyone managing data collection or analysis and interpretation of that data, folks who are related to or have a hand in the CFSR case reviews, and anyone facilitating teams that are tackling problems that have been identified by your agency. That's really who we're hoping to reach with the CQI Training Academy. I'm going to give you an overview of the training. The format is 7 distance learning units, and they comprise a couple of topics. What you can see here on the screen is 7 individual units, and you can tell by the way they're laid out, they're really meant to build on the one before. So it gives some foundational knowledge about using data to solve problems. Then it moves into more of a systematic view. What are the foundations needed to look at a structure to support CQI processes in a systematic way? Moves into identifying and understanding issues, and then looking at how, once we've identified problems and key issues in child welfare, do we pay attention to the solutions and develop solutions that can then be implemented to address those problems. Then it looks at how to monitor and assess those solutions, and lastly, there's a focus on how do we get to action. That's really the most pivotal piece when we're talking about CQI, is we can collect a whole lot of data, We can test out new solutions, but what we really need to do is make sure that we're getting to practice improvement. How are we deepening and enhancing our work in our communities with families and children, and how are we helping get to better outcomes? So that's really the ultimate goal. So you can see that sort of builds one to the next. What we learned, as I mentioned earlier in some of the feedback, was a need for this resource to be customizable and usable for a variety of people. So one thing that was done to help assist with that is we created two separate types of users. So registered users and guest users are two different ways that someone can access this academy. A registered user, as you can see here on your screen, is someone who's interested in receiving an actual certificate of completion, somebody interested in continuing education units, and also someone who wants to progress through the units in order in the prescribed way that they were designed. That is a required element of somebody using this as a registered user. Another benefit of this type of using of the system is that the system itself will track a user's progress, and they can log back in later and pick up right where they left off. So the system will actually tell them, here are the pieces you've completed, here's what's next for you to take. It is also required for registered users to complete pre- and post-test for each unit. So this is really someone who's interested in using it now in its entirety and completing it all the way through start to finish in a sequenced way, and then possibly someone who wants to go back and maybe look at using it as a refresher. That's all right as well. It's best used then if they're moving into a guest user. So what a guest user has access to is it's recommended for folks who maybe have already completed the CQI Training Academy and want to refer back to their materials or brush up on the content. So if you went through it as a registered user, you completed it start to finish, and maybe several months later you have a new special project or something else you're working on in your jurisdiction, and you recall there was something you wanted to sort of brush up on, you can go back, enter as a guest user, and take one specific module at a time. With this type of use, however, there is no certificate of completion or CEUs that are provided. This type of user is not required to complete those units in order. They can sort of take them out of order, or they can just take a few. They're not required to take the pre- and post-test, but they may complete them if they're interested in that. So having these different types of users, again, allows for a lot of flexibility in how jurisdictions are going to access this. I want to move into talking a little bit about the website and how to, what it will look like so that folks have some familiarity with it. The website itself, there is a login page where folks enter their assigned usernames and passwords. There's a home page. It gives an overall description of the academy so you can see it laid out. It also provides unit materials that are currently available so someone can see what's available to them in the whole of their training schedule. There's an About Us section that provides descriptions of the academy staff and folks who are supporting the process. And then the next slide is going to show you a quick screenshot of that login page. So this is just an example of when you're registering and first entering, what that looks like.
The screen displays a navigation tab and a sample registration form to create a new account that includes fields for first name, last name, and email address.
Some other elements are the How Training Works section. This gives guidance to participants about the flow of the training and what's next. Unit landing pages. This guides a participant through each activity. So the unit landing pages include the pre-test, self-directed modules and the readings. Any of the group-based learning are accessible here. Application activities where they're applicable. Participants sort of seeing dates of group, any other additional activities are available here. And then there's also a CEUs page, and this provides information about how to access that if you're a registered user. So that's an overall layout of what the website looks like. We're going to show you a series of screenshots so you can see a little bit of how it's laid out. This page is just showing you the landing page screenshot. This is an overview of who the faculty are that are related to this. Someone can click on the learning objectives, which is a nice feature because it allows you to see those learning objectives without actually having to access or start the learning module. And again, you see the navigation pane on the left and the pre-test and modules laid out. The next shot is going to show us a navigation pane. So this is where folks can see what's the next phase I need to look to, what is the next step, how everything is laid out. The next slide is going to show us how participants can view those learning objectives. So this is just one example from one specific module. This is a nice opportunity. Again, it can kind of give you a menu. If you're using this as a guest user, you can enter and sort of click through based on title. That sounds like something that might fit for me, and then maybe review the learning objectives to see if it's applicable to what you're hoping for. The next shot is going to show you some of the pre and post tests. There will be ongoing collection of information through these pre and post tests to help inform and support this resource. The next one is going to show us the online learning modules. So this is just one example of what it looks like. And then the next one will show us a knowledge check. This is another great element of this resource is that the online modules, I think one of the reasons that the feedback came back so positive about them being engaging was because of things like knowledge checks. So you're just having something where you're sort of sitting and listening or reading something on a screen. It's easier for participants or trainees to kind of check out. But knowledge checks embedded in there are helping ensure that they're getting the most pertinent information and that they're remaining engaged in the material. And then one more screenshot I think that's left. This lays out all the modules. So sort of shows a registered user where they're at in the process. You can see here this was a screenshot taken at the end of Unit 1. They had completed Module 3, so it sort of shows everything that they've got left to complete in that series. And then I believe we have one more screenshot that shows ongoing evaluation. Oh, sorry, no, that one's not a screenshot. I apologize. What we wanted to do was talk a little bit about the ongoing evaluation and what that will entail. We will continue to have pre and post tests. We'll continue to use the information gathered from change in knowledge, change in what those learners are being able to share they gathered from the modules, and that will inform how we're modifying or refining the Academy. What's great about this is it's really helping reinforce a parallel process. So as we're guiding jurisdictions and helping support continuous quality improvement, we're applying that to our own work through pre and post tests with the Academy. So I've done a little bit of review of what we have available, and I'd like to get a little bit more information from you all as participants. So if you can look at this question on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is your organization has formalized structures, tools, and resources to support learning and training related to CQI, and 1 is your organization is just starting to explore opportunities for using structures, tools, and resources to support learning and training related to CQI. Where are you at on that scale? So take a minute and go ahead and answer that. Again, 5 is you have some existing training and development opportunities for CQI. 1 is you're just starting that process and are in need of some more support. So we'll give you a few more seconds to answer that question. Great. So it looks like, seeming like this is heavily weighted for folks who are really just starting to implement some training and workforce development. We have a few folks on the line that are participating that have a little bit more headway made with training around CQI, but this is good for us to know as we're thinking into the next phase. We're going to be talking about what the benefits of the Academy are if you're looking at integrating it, and then lastly we'll talk about how to customize this. So sort of keep that pull in your mind of where you're at in that process and how this might be a support to you. Moving forward, there's a number of benefits related to the Academy that we're going to be talking about. The material is very customizable. It is designed to be adaptable. It's designed to be tailored to help support you. One way we've accomplished that is there are 2 user options. This offers a lot of flexibility. That's somebody can register and complete it start to finish, or folks can come in as guest users. Additionally, the content is broken up by topics and into brief modules. So you saw there were 7 units, but it's not just those 7 units. Within each unit and each topic that's being presented, there's a number of different modules. That's really helpful because it allows, again, for more flexibility and allows you to customize it. It also makes it easier for learners. We know from adult learning theory that it's really helpful if material is broken up and can be taken in small chunks. It helps with layered learning and helps assist with transfer of learning. Additionally, this material can be used both as a standalone training or in conjunction with other trainings. We know that from the feedback we received about previous deliveries that this is an effective training. The content was developed by a number of subject matter experts, individuals who have a lot of experience working with continuous quality improvement as well as working in child welfare. So the content itself is really rich with information. It's effective because it's self-directed learning. This allows learners to go in and sort of start wherever they are and begin their process of learning and moving forward and adding and enhancing what they already know and what their skill set already is related to CQI. And lastly, there are supplemental supports. So this is another element of making this as effective as possible. The base model of the Academy with the online resources and supplemental readings, as well as the discussion guides, those things in and of themselves are very helpful. And there's also supplemental support such as coaching and group learning that we're going to be talking about more in a minute that can add even more value to this as a training. And lastly, this is really helpful. One of the key benefits, I think, is that there are application opportunities. So it allows new learners to learn this new information. It promotes them to try it on. There are real-world scenarios laid into the training, as well as discussion guides and possible activities that folks can use to take this learning back into their practice. What this does for an adult learner is it means that it's not going to just stay knowledge in their head, but it's information that's actually going to be integrated in the way they do their work to implement CQI. This is going to help them promote mastery of the skills related to CQI and then help drive the process forward in your larger organization. Those are some of the key benefits that we've seen. I'd like to take a minute now that I've walked through some of the overview, the foundational knowledge about what the Academy looks like, as well as what the benefits are, and ask them another question of you all to think about how this could benefit your jurisdiction. So if you can answer the polling's question, you can use the chat function that you guys have to consider how this might benefit your jurisdiction or your agency. So you can see in the control panel pane to the right of your screen, there's a message box that you can click to enter any thoughts about how this could benefit your jurisdiction. We have one response here, helping bringing new hires up to speed. I think that's a great idea. Help staff who are transitioning from another program into CQI. So I think this can be very helpful. There's a real nuanced difference from practicing child welfare case-carrying work or supervision and moving into a role of overseeing CQI or helping to implement it. So this could be some foundational knowledge to support that. Any other ideas folks have about how this could benefit your organization?
Hi, Dawn. If I could just interrupt, I do have a few coming towards myself.
Great.
Filling in the gaps where training is not yet available.
Mm-hmm.
Increasing knowledge for CQI staff who participate.
Mm-hmm.
Would allow for consistent learning of CQI process amongst supervisors and managers, and help learn best practices. And just a few more that popped in. Consists of sharing of information so all staff have the same base information. Having web-based training will give frontline staff more opportunities for training. Classroom training is somewhat prohibited. And we also like the pre and post testing and help to develop consistency of understanding among CQI staff. And that's it for now.
Great. Thank you very much. Oh, but I'm seeing one more here. E-learning is helpful for rural areas. Yeah, so a lot of the themes I'm hearing there in possible ways that this could benefit a variety of organizations is around consistency and training. The other thing I was hearing in there is making sure that folks at all levels of the workforce, managers, supervisors, leadership, as well as those actually doing the practice, maybe not even in CQI, having some exposure to what this is. And so I think those are all great ideas about how to ensure that we're creating the culture of CQI in our organizations. Thanks for that feedback, everyone. We're going to move into the next section, which is talking about how we can integrate the CQI Training Academy into your specific existing jurisdictions and your existing training plans. So some considerations that are important to think about are assessment of your existing systems. It's important to think about what are the current training and workforce development opportunities you have related to CQI, thinking about the current level of knowledge, skills, processes, and infrastructure you already have. So like the scaling questions that we've already been asking you, it would be important to sort of consider where are we at on those scaling questions, to think about how this could fit in and add value to what we're already doing. Important to also think about communication and messaging, that we're accurately giving feedback and laying out the groundwork for folks about what this will be. This will help prepare trainees for what they're participating in when they start using the resources. Also, considering the selection of participants. So thinking about who are the folks who this will be most applicable for, who are the staff that you have or the leaders that you have that are really driving CQI forward, as well as who has the most credibility with their peers, who's going to be able to spread this learning throughout your jurisdiction, who has capacity to go out, learn new things, and then bring it back to your group, who's listened to in that way. So those are some ideas you want to be considering when thinking about who to select for this. And then also you want to be considering how to customize it. It's important to consider how it needs to be enhanced or added to, how you want to use it so that it's really meeting your specific needs. So there may be some additional supports or supplemental supports that you're interested in, and this is something that the center is able to provide. These are things that, such as coaching, group learning experiences, things like that, that were used in one of the cohorts in the early deliveries. And those things are still available through the center. So those are the key considerations we would want you to be thinking about as you're looking at using this. So I'd like to use one more polling question to get some feedback from you guys. Again, we're going to use that chat function. I'd love to hear from our participants now. What initial ideas do you have about how you might customize the CQI Training Academy to benefit your jurisdiction? So feel free to go ahead and type straight into that chat box. You can chat to the whole group, or you can chat directly to Christy and she can share your answers out. So as you're thinking about where you're at on the scaling questions we asked with your implementation and development of CQI structures and policies, where you're at with your training and workforce development opportunities related to CQI, considering where you're at now, and knowing that the base model of what we have on the CQI Training Academy is the online modules and supplemental readings, what are the things you think would be helpful to customize it and benefit your group? So I'm seeing some in here about having regional offices participate, developing cohorts of staff at the same level to go through the training. That's an interesting idea. So you're sort of building a broad base of knowledge among several staff. There's also opportunities then for group learning, so they can do some of the discussion guides together. Using it as ongoing training for our staff, I think that's an excellent opportunity for some advanced training. And then inviting people to take the full class and have others just use the resources. That'd be sort of a nice tiered approach to customize it. Any other ideas from other participants about how you can customize it or other supplemental supports that might be helpful? Involve agency partners like private provider CQI staff. That would be really helpful. A lot of what we talk about with continuous quality improvement is not only thinking about one unit or one group within your internal office who's looking at this, but there's a lot of efforts to think about how do we be transparent and share this information about our efforts towards CQI with external stakeholders. Here's some more feedback here about involving training CQI unit and team facilitators and leadership across the agency. I think it could be great background knowledge for folks with CFSR case review responsibilities. Again, with filling in gaps in knowledge, All right. Well, I think we will go ahead and move forward. Here's one last here about bringing counties together in county-administered states. That's a great idea. So some of our states, as opposed to state-administered systems, are county-administered child welfare systems. So this would be a nice way to help standardize some of those CQI efforts. Great. So we will go ahead and move forward. So now that you have thought a little bit about how you could customize this to meet your needs, what this slide is showing is blended learning. That is how it can be laid out with some of the supplemental efforts. So what's available right now through the Academy is the web-based training modules that are self-paced, 10 to 15 minutes. There's 3 to 5 modules per unit, and there are 7 of those units. So there are some additional opportunities for blended learning to add on to that, and that includes group-based learning. Could be something like virtual cohort-based sessions, using possibly the discussion guides that are available in the Academy. This could include a combination of instructor guidance or even peer-led learning, following something along the lines of a learning circle model. This could include 2-hour sessions, and in some situations 1 session per unit, so that there is an actual group-based learning activity for each individual unit. There's also possibility for application activities. So this is, again, a really nice opportunity to help folks develop mastery of skills that they're learning in the self-based or self-directed web-based modules. Is to actually apply them, have assignments, and then get some follow-up once those assignments are completed. And then lastly, group-based coaching or individual coaching. So this is the type of thing that could provide really targeted, customized support, so that as someone is going through the module, learning the information, perhaps discussing them through group-based learning and adding a few more layers to their knowledge, and then applying that learning through practice activities or skill-based activities, coming into coaching and working with someone who can help them think through and engage their critical thinking about what they're doing when they're practicing those skills and how they can build on what they're already doing well and grow the areas where they have a little bit more need. So these are opportunities for adding a little bit of additional supplemental learning opportunities, and these are different things that the center can help support. So the last little bit that we want to make sure that we leave some time for before we wrap up is final questions and closing. So we've given you an overview of what is being provided through the CQI Training Academy, as well as some of the history through initial cohorts. And we talked a little bit about how you guys might customize it or use it. We talked about the benefits and value of it, and then we also talked about integration considerations. So what we'd like to do now is really open it up and ask if there are any questions or comments that folks have to share. And Christy's going to, I think, give some instructions about how you can ask questions or make comments at this time.
Sure. I'll cover the GoToWebinar portion. You can ask your question in the GoToWebinar questions pane to the right of your screen and type in your questions. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the operator to instruct how to ask your question over the phone.
Thank you. If you have any questions or comments over the phones, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. If you are on a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. A voice prompt on your phone line will indicate when your line is open. At that point, please state your name before posing your question. Once again, that is *1, and we'll pause for just a moment.
And we did have some questions over the question feature of the GoToWebinar. I can ask that question if you're ready, Dawn.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. This question is from Christy Kroger. If a person participated in a prior CQI Academy, could that person participate as a guest user but be included in supplemental supports to continue that learning? Group learning experiences, application activities, coaching, etc.
Great question. So this sounds like someone who participated in one of the previous CQI academies, and it may be helpful for them to come back through. Charmaine, I don't know if you want to respond to that, if that's something that they can just rejoin as a guest user?
Yeah, so they could go through the academy as a guest user, and then if their state or their jurisdiction or their county is also sponsoring group learning events, they could continue to participate in them. So we're moving over the group learning to the individual states and jurisdictions for them to put on for their states and to customize it to their own CQI system. So certainly.
Great. I think it would be a nice way to help them continue to add to their learning.
Sure.
Great. Any other questions, Christy?
Yeah, I do have a couple more. One is the Training Academy available in Spanish?
Charmaine, can you respond to that?
Not at this time. We will definitely take that suggestion, though. It is 508 compliant.
Great, thank you. And the next question I have from Paul Anderson, what services or support can the liaisons provide to states?
The liaisons can connect your state or jurisdiction to us, and we would be happy to help provide some coaching to figure out how best to embed the CQI Training Academy into your training catalog or schedule and what you're already doing and help you talk through that. So your state liaison is going to be your conduit.
Great. Thank you. Our next question is from Sylvia. How would departments or divisions pay for these services? Is it by subscription?
Oh, we have a great answer for that one. It's free. No payment required.
Fantastic. That is all the questions I have through my chat pane right now. I will turn it over to the operator to address those in-person questions.
And once again, that will be *1 for any questions. And it appears we have no further questions in queue at this time.
This is Charmaine, and I just want to remind everyone that there are several handouts that are on your pane, and they were also included in the email. One is called About the CQI Training Academy, and it has the URL address for the learning management system that is housing the CQI Training Academy.
That website is learn.childwelfare.gov.
Please go there to sign up for the CQI Training Academy, again, either as a guest or a registered user. It also has a list of your liaison contacts and our CQI Training Academy PowerPoint presentation.
For a complete list of presentations and current contacts, please visit the Capacity Building Center for States website at https://capacity.childwelfare.gov/map.
At a later time, we will have up the CQI Training Academy replication manual and make that available to training managers or CQI managers who want to replicate the Academy in their state above and beyond the e-learning or distance learning modules. So if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us.
To contact the liaison for Alaska, American Samoa, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State, email jennie.pettet@icfi.com. For Arizona, California, Guam, Hawaii, Nevada, and the Northern Mariana Islands, email james.coloma@icfi.com. For Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, Port Gamble, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming, email mary.iannone@icfi.com. For Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Texas, email francine.anaya@icfi.com. For Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and South Carolina, Email simon.pipkin@icfi.com. For Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin, email julie.allison@icfi.com. For Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Tennessee, email jacqueline.melton@icfi.com. For Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, the District of Columbia, and West Virginia, email annn.knefel@icfi.com. For New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, email cindy.santos@icfi.com. For Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont, email kristen.sellec@icfi.com. For the complete list of current contacts, please visit the Capacity Building Center for States website at https://capacity.childwelfare.gov/map.
There's also a Contact Us form on the LMS. So
And if I could interrupt, I'm sorry, we did have a question that did queue.
Oh, sure.
And we'll take our first question from.
I was wondering when the next session of the Training Academy is going to be starting so that we can plan for time for our staff to participate.
And the good news is that it could start in 5 minutes, because the CQI Academy is not being run with cohorts at this time. It's jurisdictional. So people can take it independently or to develop cohorts in their state. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to provide coaching to states to help them figure out what is best for them. Whether or not people want to use it independently to go ahead and get started, because right now it's open and available and ready for business.
How do we sign up?
Just go to where that URL is and register either as a guest user or a registered user, and you can start immediately.
Thank you.
And we have no further questions in the queue at this time.
So again, use the Contact Us form on the LMS if you have questions, or contact your state liaison and we will connect with you. We hope you enjoy the Academy, and again, we appreciate everything JBS International has done to get it up to this point.
And I believe, Charmaine, there's an evaluation at the end that we wanted to remind folks of, correct?
Correct. And you will see that in an email and also in the chat pane.
Great. Thank you, everyone, very much for participating today.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.